Welcome to Mor-In The Know podcast. I'm your host, Josh Morin, co-founder and vice president of Field Supplements, as well as sobriety, woke, business, and wellness coach. Mor-In The Know delivers an array of content based on marketing, health and fitness, personal branding, addiction, and often goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy, politics, and the truth. If you seek to better understand the inner workings of human performance, business, consciousness, and humanity, you have come to the right place. Thank you for tuning in and tagging along. Let's get today's podcast started. What is going on, everyone? Man, it has been too long since I've jumped back on here and done a podcast. Last week I did a podcast, but it was out of focus. So that's no good. Maybe I just haven't been focused. Maybe that was a metaphor to my life, is I just haven't been dialed in as focused as I think I have been. And I think that's a big reason why I'm getting back on and doing these podcasts now is I'm refocused, realigned. I just wanted to take some time for myself. So I appreciate your guys' patience and expect a lot of content and context, a lot of context and content from here on out. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now. I've been doing a lot of live videos each evening, so you're welcome to join my Instagram page at Mor-In The Know. It's MORINTHEKNOW. On Instagram nightly around 8:30 and 9 o'clock, I go on there and I shoot the shit. So if you want to shoot the shit with me, join in weekdays at around 8:30 or 9 o'clock on my Instagram live. Other big things happening in the world right now in terms of documents and court cases with Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as there was a human trafficking World Against Human Trafficking Day on the 30th of July. I participated in a march and a rally for saving the children, as well as the women and children that are affected. And I'm going to get to that at a later podcast, potentially maybe my next podcast, as well as it's down the road. I'm gonna uncover and lift the veil on topics like Pizzagate, Epstein Island, Frazzle Drip, adrenochrome, and much more. For the purpose of this podcast, I actually had something inspire me this morning with a conversation that I had with a really good friend of mine, and I wanted to share some things because I haven't spoken about my sobriety or just about sobriety in general yet during the time of the podcast. And I begin my podcast essentially saying that I talk about sobriety, health and wellness, addiction, and I've yet to talk about it. So I think it's not only a great time to talk about it, but it's a great time to be about it. For many of you who don't know, I have now been sober for 16 months as of August 1st. So that's 1 year and 4 months. And the way how I got there was just one day at a time. And there's a lot of intricate details in between, but the only way that you get to anywhere is simply one day at a time. It's a committed effort. But the reason why I wanted to make this podcast is because I had a conversation earlier with a good friend of mine who I believe he told me that he's going to get sober next Wednesday, and that he's going to essentially have his fun over the weekend, get it out of his system, and then come next Wednesday, he's going to commit to being sober, which we will see, and I'm fully supportive of it, and I want the best for him, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the stories that we play in our minds when we are addicts, and the stories that we continually play over and over again for reasons not to be sober, and reasons not to live a committed lifestyle to that aspect, because that's the biggest thing that we all play, is we all begin to justify our situations, we begin to justify our actions. And if you really feel that you require sobriety in your life, or if you're on the edge of taking the leap, maybe this is the podcast that really is the wind in your sail to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to step up, I'm going to go to an NA meeting, or I'm going to go to an AA meeting, or you know what, you're right, today I'm going to step up and be the man or woman that I deserve to be and become. Because I tell you what, over the last year in 4 months, the person and human being that I have developed and grown into and is so gratifying, because I knew I could always be this person and continually to be on this journey of growth, but I was so hesitant and I was so scared, because I used to play this story in my head about stopping alcohol, stopping drugs, stopping marijuana, stopping hallucinogenics, stopping sex. I used to play these scenarios in my head of why I can't, instead of putting my faith in God, my faith in myself, of why I can. And that's what I want to talk about on this podcast, is the stories that we speak in our minds to justify our addiction. Because many of you out there might be on the fringe of wanting to be sober, but you sit and you tell yourself a different story over and over again, and you allow yourself to justify your situation instead of stepping up, stepping into your power, letting go of the control that's keeping you out of control, and taking things one day at a time. So I'm going to break down just a few different scenarios and things that and roles and stories that we play in our minds, that I know I have. I know that the friend of mine on the phone, he literally said the same things that I would say to myself as the reasons why we can't be sober, or the reasons why that it's okay to not be sober. And if you're, this isn't saying that everybody's an addict out there, but if you are using substances to any way, shape, or form, numb and or alleviate any of the stresses, the pains of society, and to essentially elevate, levitate, and get you out of your body, then you potentially are an addict. Addicts come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. Not everybody is this a rock bottom addict where you're drinking a gallon of vodka every single day and you're having delirium tremors like my success coach Jeffrey Combs. Not everybody is in that situation. I was a binge user. I was an everyday user of marijuana, and then on the weekends and then other times and other opportunities that I had access to other drugs and in other situations, I would binge use and I would go on benders. So that was my style of use. Now everybody has their own version of what their addiction is. You know, some people are everyday drinkers or high functioning alcoholics or high functioning drug addicts. Whatever your situation or story is, just know that you don't have to be at rock bottom. You can be at rock middle to change your life. And maybe today you're watching this, and maybe today is your rock middle, and maybe today is the push and the leap that you require to make that commitment to yourself, because you deserve to be that man or woman that is sober. You deserve to be that man or woman that is committed to yourself, your sobriety, and your journey of growth. That's who you deserve to be. So here's a few things that on the phone, on the conversation I had today, and these are the same things that there's some things that I would say to myself as well, such as the biggest thing is I would play the roles in my head of saying, well, if I'm sober and I can't do these things anymore, I'm not going to be the cool guy. I'm not going to be the person that's like, oh, you know, like when you go meet somebody new and they're like, oh, do you smoke weed? And you're like, yeah, man, I smoke weed. Like, oh, fuck yeah, bro, let's smoke a bowl together, you know? And like all of a sudden you're like this cool person, you're like the man. Or like, do you do blow? You're like, yeah, bro, like sick, dude. I got a couple lines. Let's fucking chalk up a couple lines. Or, you know, do you eat mushrooms? Or you do psychedelics? And you're like, yeah, this is exactly what I do, you know? And then you do it, and then all of a sudden you're like this cool guy that just does everything. But you're also like this cool guy or cool girl who can do drugs but owns a business, and also it speaks very articulately and powerfully, and you have all these grandiose ideas about life and what you could do to change the world. But on the other side of things, you're also somebody who's suppressing and repressing life, not only through the substances that you're taking through marijuana, cocaine, barbiturates, opioids, alcohol, whatever that your source is. You're also suppressing life through the repressed and suppressed feelings of your past, of your addictions to codependency, your addictions to being let down, self-sabotage, anger, resentment, unresolved feelings of guilt, apathy. And what you will find is over and over again, regardless if you remove the substance from your life, you're still going to be an addict. And I'll get into that more later. But for the purpose of this, just going back into what I was saying in regards of being the man or being the woman and how will you fit in, is that's a story that we all play. It's like, okay, well, what's going to happen now when I'm around these people and I have to tell them I'm sober, or like I don't want to take a shot with my friends anymore, or I'm not going to smoke a bowl or do that line of cocaine or eat those mushrooms or do that acid anymore. Like, who am I? Who am I going to be when I'm in that situation? And first and foremost, all I got to say is that you will find yourselves, when you commit to sobriety, in less and less of those situations. You're automatically going to attract less of those situations. Now, if you commit to sobriety and you find yourself just and you just continually put yourself in those situations, that's up to you. You know, that's up to you. And most likely you will end up relapsing because you won't have the committed nature to do it. But if you're somebody on the fringe and you say, you know what, maybe I do have a problem, maybe it's time to check yourself into AA or NA and really step out of your denial and stop saying that you aren't an addict, and step into your power and say, you know what, I am an addict, and that's okay. I am an addict, and this is how I'm going to change. And today, and only for today, God is granting me the serenity for the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And if you follow your life by that by that serenity prayer, you'll begin to step into this one day at a time mentality that no longer are you overwhelmed, unorganized in your head and anxious about your sobriety. You're now here in the moment, calm, cool, and collected, and you're able to be here now, your best and truest self. It's not about being the man or being the woman. It's about being the best man for you and the best man in your life and the best woman. It's not about being the best. It's about being your best. And if you can understand and decipher that distinction, then you'll begin to step into this new realm of sobriety and recovery that's going to allow you to attract people, places, and situations that you have never thought would be possible before. People are always so scared of being in sobriety because they're so like, man, I've been, I haven't had sex sober. That's another one. Or how am I going to, the biggest thing is I always played this in my head is like, well, how am I going to get women now? Is, most of the time I'll have women, we'll get some drinks, we'll smoke some weed, and then we'll have our fun. And that was the way that I would be able to seduce women into wanting to be with me. Like, how am I going to I can't go get drinks anymore. I can't smoke pot with these girls. I can't hang out with them. And what you'll find out is most of the time when you're in those situations and scenarios, you're not even there. You are so checked out in that situation because you're high and you're drunk and you really aren't even listening to what they're saying or what they're doing, or you're not even really connecting. It's a false interaction that you're having with these people because you're intoxicated or you're high or whatever the situation may be. But guess what happens is when you're sober and you're in those situations and you start to realize, holy cow, maybe I don't even want to have sex with this person. Maybe I don't even want to have sex with this guy. And maybe I'm having sex to fulfill this false sense of confidence in myself of being able to get them. You're like, oh, I could get any woman or I could get any man. And maybe that's just a false sense of confidence because you have low self-esteem over the years. Maybe you really aren't the man. Maybe you really aren't the woman. And maybe instead of telling yourself and giving yourself this false sense of identity, maybe it's time to get raw and honest with yourself about your insecurities. And that's something that I had to do as a man, is to realize the real lies that I was telling myself, is how insecure I was to have to perpetuate this feeling of confidence through filling the voids through sex, drugs, alcohol, and a multitude of situations to make myself think that I am the man. And it's not about being the man now in sobriety. It's about being my best self every single day, each day, one day at a time. And so these are all scenarios and situations that we play in our mind. Is like, well, there are successful people out there who can smoke marijuana and do drugs and make millions of dollars. Good for them. They can. But if you can't, and if you feel that something's holding you back, maybe this is something that's holding you back. Maybe sobriety is exactly what is required in your life to really step up and be the person that you deserve to be the man, be the woman that you deserve to be the husband, be the wife, be the brother, be the son-in-law, be the brother-in-law, be the grandson that you deserve to be. Maybe this is your calling. And if this is your calling, maybe it is time to step up and step into your power instead of justifying and avoiding the situation because you think that, what crazy times it is right now. Maybe I don't really have to be sober, with all the fucked up stuff going on. Why not? What makes being sober really, that important? It's very important because the more that you're sober, the more clear that you can see. No longer do you live in this haze. And maybe you don't do it every day. Maybe it's on the weekends, but figure out why you do it on the weekends. Figure out why you're still suppressing, justifying yourself to put yourself in those situations. And that's a conversation that you have to have with yourself. And so just understand that we're always going to play these stories in our minds, like, what am I going to do with women, or what am I going to do with men? And there's like, I used to have like this protocol of, I would get some drinks, smoke some pot, a girl would come over, maybe we'd do some drugs, whatever it may be, then we'd have sex, and essentially, that's exactly how it would go every single time. What happens now is that, I don't have sex most of the time on the first date, or that's not my sole purpose, and every now and then I do have relapses into that, but I do not relapse into substances. But I'm aware and honest with myself enough to know when I'm having these relapses, and that's what sobriety allows you to be, is committed to really knowing who you are as a person. And that's what's most important, is who you are at your core. When you think that, you're this cool guy or this cool girl because you're doing drugs, you're doing mushrooms, and you're doing psychedelics, and you're smoking pot, and like everybody just thinks you're this cool person or whatever it may be, maybe you're not that person at your core. And the thing about it is you know what? I take I I hate to use the word pride, but I got a sense of confidence in now telling people when I'm out in those situations, which are far and few between, that I am sober. I take confidence in that. I have confidence in that because I know the commitment that it requires each and every single day to be and stay my best self, to work on myself, to take the steps to being committed and to being committed to my sobriety and my growth. I understand the requirements because it takes a lot more commitment. It takes a lot more being the man or being the woman to be sober than it does to continually not be sober and justify yourself and be in this situation where you just justify and tell yourself the story that it's okay. I promise you, it takes a much more committed version of yourself, the version that you're scared of. We're all scared of this version of this person who we really could become. Most of us aren't scared of failure. We're scared of success, and we are avoiding success like the plague. And most of us avoid success like the plague because we want to self-sabotage our situation because we're not ready and willing for the committed responsibility that success brings. And when you really step up and you step into your sobriety and you are committed to being that person that deserves to have the success that you truly seek, then you'll begin to find that life takes a whole nother different meaning, a whole nother meaning. You'll find that you'll have people, places, and situations around you that are no longer perpetuating these low levels of transmutational energy of fear, guilt, apathy, and resentment and unresolved feelings. You're gonna of anger and pride and resentment. You're gonna now step into this whole realm of people and this new vibrational state of being that's gonna attract so much love, so much light, and so much healing to your world. And that's what you're scared of. You're scared of that. But maybe this is the calling that says, you know what? Now's the time. Take the leap. Take that leap of faith. Lead with your heart. And if I can do it, if the tens of thousands and millions of people in the world can do it, you can absolutely do it. So with that being said, I just want to appreciate you guys tuning in and taking along at Mor-In The Know podcast. I wanted to touch on this topic, and I feel like I could just keep going on forever and ever. And I'm going to definitely continually talk about this topic because it is something that I'm very well educated in. If you're seeking somebody as a sobriety coach beyond your sponsor in AA, I do sobriety coaching, success coaching, and I will assist you in understanding the cause, the effect of why you do what you do. And if you seek to change the quality of your life, today is the day. Make the commitment. Send me a direct message. I offer 20-minute free coaching calls and coaching sessions, and we will go from there. I appreciate you guys. Find me on Instagram at Mor-In The Know, morintheknow.org. You can find all of our podcasts there. And of course, behind me, you see the highest quality products, supplements with the top of the line manufacturing procedures, Field Supplements. My dad and I co-own the company. You can find us online at fieldsupplements.com or our Instagram page at Field Supplements. You guys have a blessed day.